Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women, Tech, and Society, a show where we would explore issues and challenges that women in the society face. A show where we would explore how women can use technology to access opportunities for positive change in the society. On the show with me today is an amazing guest who will take us through her journey and her experiences, her perception of women in society and technology and leadership. At this point, please, can we meet you? Can you introduce yourself? Tell us what motivates you and how you got into your field.
Wow. Thank you very much for having me, first and foremost, another fellow woman. My name is Basirat Are. I am from Oyo State, Ibadan, but I'm currently based in the United States, in Maryland. By profession, I am an HR systems solutions consultant. I implement, design, and build HR systems for organizations. And I also run a technology consulting firm in the United States. Over the past few years, I started to see an opportunity as an HR technology professional to build my own solutions. And when I started the business, I realized that I needed to hire people. And as a small business owner, you need to have startup funds, or you're either bootstrapping or you're lending money to get started. So I realized an opportunity with outsourcing, just like you've seen a lot of companies do, Tech Mahindra, Infosys. They get contracts in the United States and they outsource it to India, to the Philippines, and so on and so forth. Even Australia and some of those EMEA countries. So I decided to start recruiting talent in Africa. And at this point, because I'm Nigerian, it was a low-hanging fruit. I said, yes, I can do this. I'm in HR. I hire people, I recruit, I train, and I build the solutions that manage all the entire employee life cycle. So when I started recruiting talent in Africa, I started with Nigeria. I observed a gap in digital literacy. And what I mean by that is I realized that although we have very talented individuals in Nigeria and in some other countries, but I'm specifically speaking about Nigeria because I started with hiring talent in Nigeria. I realized that there was a huge gap in understanding technical skills, business tools, communication skills, and the likes. So for someone that wanted to start hiring and recruiting talent and outsourcing them to some of my contracts overseas, I saw an opportunity. Though it was a problem, but I saw it as an opportunity for me to be in a position to empower the African youth, the Nigerian youth, and say, hey, you have a skill set. We need to mold it, we need to refine it, and help you build those skills to where you can actually work in a digital environment and compete in the global economy. So it's no surprise that at this point, we're in 2024, the world is digital, the world is going digital everywhere we go, and with artificial intelligence, if you're not up to par, if you're not up to speed with what's going on in the digital space, you're definitely losing out.
Wow, wow, that's really a lot that you do there. Well, thank you so much for that, and thank you for accepting to come on our show today.
Yeah.
I mean, so right now I'm going to ask you my next question. So,
Okay.
how would you describe the current societal perception or state of technology in Nigeria, particularly in relation to women, society, technology, and leadership?
That's a large question. I will try my best to break it down as much as possible and hone in on the scope in terms of Nigeria. You know, as a diasporan, again, I started to become very concerned about what was going on at home, especially when we would see news about people traveling to Libya. You hear about prostitution, you know, people talking about a lot of young girls, being exploited sexually because they want to find greener pastures overseas. So let's just really break down the aspect of societal pressure. I think coming home, the past few years, I've been coming back to Nigeria every year and hosting these forums. What I've seen first and foremost is that we have a cultural problem when it comes to women. And forgive me, I just have to be very frank. And I believe that the perception is that women are just made to bear children and get married, and that's pretty much it. And a large majority of SMEs in Nigeria alone, let's just not even go to Africa, are the ones that are driving the economy. When you go to the market, whether it's in Oshodi or Mushi or Yaba and all these other larger places, you see that a lot of the women, a lot of the businesses or the SMEs are led by women. For example, the fashion industry is a huge industry where women are dominating in terms of selling goods in the market, whether it's things that we'll call a supermarket, and so on and so forth, whether it's in the food industry, hospitality, beauty and healthcare, things of that nature. So you actually see that despite the cultural mindset of a woman is supposed to just prepare herself to, be a wife and have children, better yet, and eventually get a job, you see that we are actually great contributors to the economy, especially in Nigeria. So that's in terms of, what I see about the perception of women. Not only that, I also have seen that we're suffering from a long-term issue of not investing in women education. It's a big topic to dive into, so I'll just keep it, really high level. I wasn't aware of that until I went to the United States and started working with the African Union and seeing them really, really focused on gender-based initiatives, and I was just like, what is this? What is going on? And you start to see that, in my age group, as a '89 baby, I realized that a lot of women, a lot of families did not care to invest in their children's education. Now, I can't necessarily blame the parents. There's poverty, there's lack of resources for education, and just not a high prioritization of young women going to school. And so we are seeing the remnants of that today. So it's really unfortunate. So now let's talk about getting into the technology aspect. As an entrepreneur and an employer, am ashamed to say it, but 90% of my staff are men. Not because I don't even know what the reason is. I'm still trying to figure that out. In the United States, there's an initiative regarding, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Before, it's just more about diversity and inclusion. There's always stats with the EEOC looking into demographics of, male versus women in the workforce. And first, we started to see that it was more males that were applying for jobs in the tech space. There's a problem with that. Do I know why? I don't know. I feel that, again, culturally, women have been thinking that anything STEM related is just more for the males. When it comes to science, when it comes to technology, when it comes to engineering, and also mathematics. So you tend to see women apply for administrative roles, home economics. When I went to Methodist Girls High School in Yaba, and I remember we took home economics class, and we took arts class, and it was an all-girls school. And so I saw very quickly that women were not expected to place themselves in those STEM fields. I do appreciate the organizations who have been doing all of that. So in the society, the women are expected to, just get a basic job, maybe in banking, right? In administration, in education. You see them as service workers in hospitality, and heavily also in retail. So when you see the surge of technology and you start to see that it's more men in the technology space, it's then very clear to see that a lot of women have not been pushed beyond their capacity because of the cultural norms that we come from as a society. And when I say that, I mean as Africans in general, not just as Nigerians. So, like I said, as an employer, I'm ashamed to say it, we have more men applying for our jobs, even in our internship programs, than women. And I think it speaks to the fact that we're not putting enough effort into career development programs, into empowerment of women, and letting them know that, hey, you can do this too. You can get in the STEM field. You can also be a pioneer or a mechanic, or a civil engineer or a software engineer. Now things have changed, but I'm just speaking frankly about my experience and my observations so far as a woman in tech and also an employer who has had to hire more males than women.
Okay, yes, I think that's a very interesting one that you said out there. You just mentioned how women are not really being supported. They're not really interested in STEM or technology, or like you rightly mentioned, your staff, most of your team members are males. So how do you think that technology and social change can better empower women and support women to go to, delve more in technology and also leadership position, just like you rightly mentioned?
Well, I would have to say that now there are more opportunities, there's more awareness, there are more initiatives that are in place to support women. I personally believe that career development programs is a huge start, especially in the schools. That's where I think is the nucleus of that initiative. Secondly, I also believe that women need to see themselves outside of the norms or the box that they've already been fixed in. So, providing career development programs, I think She Codes Africa, She Leads Africa, they have some really great programs that's
Yes.
really, really empowering women. And I believe because of everything that's happened since COVID, there's just a lot more awareness, and you're starting to see women themselves being more interested and wanting to get more into tech, whether it's going for business analysis training or learning how to be software developers, or I see most of them in UI UX design nowadays, and also in project management roles, which I also held one of those positions in the past. So I think with exposure to technology, there's been a lot more opportunities for women, and it starts from the schools and also outside of the schools. And I believe that it also takes the women themselves needs to take it upon themselves to seek information out there. There's a lot of learning programs out there, but it really takes a lot more than just career development programs. But I've been seeing some good initiatives out there already, really filling that gap.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I've heard about She Code Africa, and I'm like, yes, women are really doing a lot in tech,
Yes.
even though it's not very pronounced, but trust me, I feel like we're getting there, and
Yeah.
we'll get there soon. Okay, so that drives me to my next question, which is very important. I know that a lot of times women face a lot of challenges, and I know that from your experience, you've probably faced some challenges, or let's even just say one challenge that you have faced, either yourself or you've witnessed someone else, someone or some other women or some other woman face, and then how you think you were able to, overcome the challenge.
Thank you. Many challenges, but I think the most profound one for me is coming from a human resources administrative role and starting to delve into project management. And I started to see that, oh my gosh, I have an affinity for technology. I like building, I like running VBA scripts and writing macros and using Excel to just analyze data. And I was just like, man, this is awesome. So, one of the challenges immediately that I observed with myself was imposter syndrome. Like, am I good enough? Am I really in tech? Are these skills transferable? What is someone in human resources doing in the technology space? One way I was able to overcome that was really letting people know about what I'm doing, what I'm learning, and getting the validation of, oh my gosh, you know how to do these things. That means you can actually be a technical consultant. So then I also started to involve myself in coding programs. I remember participating in Khan Academy. I took some courses online, and I started to attend a lot of networking events. Any event related to tech, I was always in there because I just really wanted to make sure that I was understanding this space that I'm finding myself in. So you have Anita B, and you also have NCWIT, the National Conference for Women in Technology. I go to that conference on a yearly basis now. So, putting myself out there and just, really getting more exposed and learning what space I'm in now allowed me to be able to just kind of shed that imposter syndrome and really believe in myself. But it definitely took some time for sure.
Well, that's interesting. I feel like a lot of women actually suffer that imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
you, I
yeah.
feel, so thank you. You also mentioned that going out more, speaking more, engaging more, learning more
Yes,
will help conquer that. Thank you
yes.
so much for sharing about that. Okay, so based on everything you've said, I know you've done so much. You've trained a lot of people. I mean, you've done so much in the space. So I'd like you to share maybe a little bit more about some of your significant progress and milestone or achievements that you think that you've actually achieved and then you're happy about.
Ah, man. I would say that yes, I am proud of my journey. When you think about where I started to where I am today, there's still definitely a lot of work to do. But one thing I'm proud of is just number one, just be able to start a business and hire staff. That is just one milestone in itself that I think a lot of women that are business owners don't praise themselves for. So for me, I'm very proud of that because I remember when there was a point I couldn't hire people, and that takes a lot of work to do in itself. But in terms of technology, I'm proud to be able to say that as a black woman, as a woman in HR or HR technology, I see myself being a pioneer in the HR technology space, especially in Africa, basically bringing what I've learned in the United States and trying to bring that back home. So we started a community called HR Techish, and the goal is to really encourage women, because if you think about it, we have a lot of women in the human resources and administration
Yeah,
space.
true.
And I think they don't realize how much technical skills they use on a daily basis to just, do onboarding, recruiting, doing labor headcount and things of that nature. And so being able to start a community like that and, build momentum around it is really amazing. I'm really happy to see where we're heading. We're still growing and hoping to definitely build more and eventually have one of the first conferences in West Africa, HR Tech Conference. Secondly, is the fact that I've been able to mobilize a community of supporters and sponsors to support what we've been doing at Era Connect, which is providing resources for young Africans to transition into the digital space. We've held 4 open forums. We've trained about 400 youth to date. I'm lucky to say that I've been also able to retain a lot of the talent that we've trained and hired so far. And we have some products on the way that we're ready to push to market. So a lot to be grateful for and celebrate.
Wow, wow, that's great. I mean, you've done a lot. And yeah, kudos to Era Connect and your job well done. Okay, so I know you had mentioned that imposter syndrome was one of the challenges that you face
Yeah.
personally. So do you currently foresee any challenge in the future that you think women are likely to face? And how do you think that we could, remain resilient in the face of setbacks?
Uh, Continuous learning is one of the core values that I've just added. I added this core value to my list of values in 2020. I believe that if we don't continuously learn, we will face a setback. Just last year, what was it, 2022? Everyone was just, really talking about ChatGPT. And now everyone that didn't know about ChatGPT is now learning about it. I told my mom to download the app the other day. I said, download ChatGPT. So we, as women, although we are, let's say for those of you who have actually transitioned into technology space, you have to continuously learn. You have to invest in your learning journey. Technology landscape is always changing. So I am very concerned that we may pick a skill and just stick to it, but we have to continue to invest in our knowledge and build upon it. So I believe that continuous learning is probably one of the most important things that I would encourage any young women to invest in right now, whether through self-learning, there are YouTube videos, there are podcasts out there, there's courses on Coursera. I mean, there's so many free platforms out there now that just has a lot of information that you just have to try your best to engage. The second most important thing is networking. Yes, women are shy sometimes. They again, that imposter syndrome part is still a part of it. It's like, you probably don't want to put yourself out there too much. You don't want to say too much. You don't want to seem too forward. And, you're probably in a male-dominated space, but you have to, brace yourself, be confident, go up there, introduce yourself, let people know what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, what your career goals are, and just go for the gusto. The worst you can get is a no. And, if you get a no the first time, try to ask again, find another way. So you have to build enough confidence and really try to find a community of supporters through networking. So find a lot of events that support women, initiatives that support women in a tech space or in a leadership space, and immerse yourself by attending as much of those events as much as you can, whether it's online or in person. So continuous learning and networking, very important.
Wow, continuous learning and networking, very important.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. And then based on what you've said, so I would like to ask, what are some of the false beliefs that you've heard about women? I know sometimes if you see a woman driving, or most times when people say, they'll be like, oh, she's a woman. And then she's like, oh, it's a woman, oh, no wonder. And then you're like, okay, why? So I think those are some of the basic beliefs that we have seen. But what are some of the basic beliefs that you feel that you've seen in women in leadership position? And how do you think we can change this narrative?
Personally, I've been blessed to have worked with some powerful women in my career journey, working in a corporate world. Because I've also been in the HR space, my supervisors or my managers have always been women for the most part. I believe that most people think that women can't handle leadership positions. Most people think that women are emotional, they can be irrational, and they don't know how to take feedback well. And quite frankly, I've worked with some powerful women. Again, my grandma is a great example of that. We ran a beer parlor in Oshodi, and most of our customers were men. And sometimes they can be very unruly. And she knew how to handle them, and she also taught me how to handle them. Now, going into the corporate space, you might be a COO or a VP of HR, having to sit in the midst of male leaders who are CFOs and CEOs of the organization, and to be able to hold a conversation, emphasize on, hey, we need to implement this new HR system, or we need to make sure we take care of our employees, and just really having a voice. Most people think that women are not resilient and can't take feedback very well, or can't handle hard conversations. And in terms of leadership, I've definitely seen the opposites, and I am proud to say that I'm one of those women. But it took some time to be able to build that skill set in a man's world, for sure.
Yeah, well, I think you're a very strong woman.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, so yes, I'm going to ask this. They say this. I know that we have experiences and from different sectors, right? But and then you also talked about your organization and how most of your team members. I'm going back to how your team members are all males. So how do you think, or how do you think, like, we can, have a more inclusive structure and to support women to, in different organizations? How do you think we can support women in leadership positions? Like you rightly said, how can we handle some of the pressures that we go through? And then, how can we actually support them in businesses as well?
Ooh. In terms of businesses, we need male allies, first and foremost. And I think that's what NC WIT has been able to do a good job of. NC WIT, definitely check them out. I love what they're doing. They've been able to develop a community, a body of supporters, again, male allies who actually support the advancement of women in education, in STEM, in leadership. In terms of entrepreneurship, more funding, right? We need more funding initiatives. I've seen the African Development Bank group also have some programs for women SMEs. But as an employer, I realized something. There are women who, when they get pregnant, they're scared to let their employers know. And last year, I was very happy to see the U.S. Department of Labor actually introduce a new policy for sick leave for pregnant women. And I think there's another company in Nigeria. I don't know if it's in Nigeria, but I think it's a multinational company, Unilever. I think they were the first to adopt a menstrual policy sick leave for women. I realized that there's a lot of women who actually have really bad menstrual cramps. And sometimes you're like, oh, get over it. Go to work. You can get to work. Like, what do you mean you have menstrual cramps? But there's some people who actually have chronic pains from menstrual cramps and they can't work and they need to be able to take time from work. Well, what if they've exhausted their leave or their vacation time, things of that nature? So seeing companies being pro women is very nice to see. So I think for employers creating grooming spaces for women who are breastfeeding to be able to take care of the women. I've seen that at Accenture. I've seen that at other places that I've worked at previously. And also seen in the government space, or let me not say the government space, but more in the policy space where we're starting to see maternity leave in America. I think it's about 26 weeks. In Kenya, I think about 4 to 12 weeks in Nigeria, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, companies themselves taking it upon themselves to say, let's create a safe space for women, or maybe employee resource groups for women. Let's have a women leadership program and support and steer up women. I would say personally in my life, I'm very grateful for some powerful women, some powerful men who are seeing what I'm doing and they're like, hey, let's push her up there. I have some uncles who are very heavy in the government space. And so far, they've been able to support my journey and introduce me in spaces where I don't think just solely myself as a woman I would have been able to get into. So that's why I started with we need more male allies to create that room of inclusion. And we need more organizations to invest in funding small business owners and supporting them and educating them about what it means to be a business owner in a very, very brutal space. But that's something that I think I've observed and I'd like to see more of in terms of diversity and inclusion.
Well, thank you so much. When we've been talking, I know that I haven't heard funding. I know women, we need a lot of funds to, empower ourselves, empower more women in STEM, empower more women in leadership positions, empower more women in decision-making processes. And then I know that we haven't mentioned that. So I want to ask, do you have any idea or knowledge about any initiative that you think that women can, get more involved in or access to be able to access some of these funds?
Yes, there's so many out there, and again, I'm gonna speak from a personal experience. Frankly, I don't know if it's a women thing, but early on, I was so against credit. I don't want to. I was like, I don't want to owe anybody money. I don't want to owe anybody money, and that comes from financial literacy, right? Saying, hey, you're supposed to operate your business on some funds. Don't, you can bootstrap. Some gurus out there, they recommend highly, bootstrap and try as much as possible not to have any debt. But there are some programs out there, there are accelerator programs that actually support small businesses. Like I mentioned earlier, Women Initiative for Africa. There's the World Bank who have some initiatives for women as well. And in my space, I've seen some great leaders out there who started a Fearless Fund. I think they've been supporting not just women business owners, but also just minority business owners in general. There's some projects that I've seen with the USAID, also funding women entrepreneurship. And I've seen some states themselves. I'll say Oyo State was actually one of the states that I saw as a pioneer for supporting women-owned businesses and SMEs. So there's a lot of programs. There are lots of programs out there, and I think it's a matter of just putting those resources together and pushing them out to the surface of those who are not aware of them.
Well, thank you so much for that. Then I'll ask you my last question. What would you say to a woman who wants to, get into a business or has a business idea or wants to go into? So I'm asking you two questions in one.
Okay.
So one of the questions is, what would you say to a woman who is interested in going into a business but is scared because they lack the financial literacy, just like you rightly mentioned, getting credit? And a woman who is interested in tech but is scared because they feel like, oh, it's probably too difficult, I can't handle it. So what would you advise women in that field?
I mean, once you have the idea, flesh it out. There's something they call a business model canvas. You know, some people are like, when you want to start a business, create a business plan. So I decided, I was going to create a business plan, a 32-page business plan. But the more time I tried to build a whole dissertation about my business and what I was trying to do, it started to become so overwhelming. So I encourage you to just go online, look for a business model canvas template. Just jot it down. It's a 9-section document. It's one page. Just put in your customer segments, your value prop, your revenue streams, your key partners, and your key activities, and also your cost structure. That high-level information is the first most important thing that I think that you need to do when you have a business idea. Secondly, you need to check other women who are already doing what you're trying to do. Don't think that you have this new unique idea. There's nothing new under the sun, as my grandma always say. So if you have a business idea, first and foremost, flesh it out, and then start to put the word out there about what you're trying to do. I know in Nigeria and Africa, some people say, keep your ideas to yourself, don't tell people. You got to let people know about what you're trying to do. I remember just, starting out, I just was fleshing out ideas. I was doing my own research and trying to capture all this information, but I was keeping it all to myself. I wasn't letting people know. So in the United States, they have a program called SCORE. They're the nonprofit arm for, advising people that want to get into business. So they provide mentoring programs and just educating you on what you need to do and providing you the resources. So if you have a business idea, flesh it out on that business model canvas and start doing your research now. Don't delay. You're on Google, you're on Twitter, you're on TikTok every single day. Just spend that little bit of time and do your research. Let's just be frank, all right? We don't do that well enough. So that's for the women that wants to get into business and start your business. Know that if you have that idea, you can do it. You don't have to be the person that does it all. Identify what your weaknesses are so you can quickly do a SWOT. A SWOT analysis, just a quick list of your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and threats to your progress, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So your business model canvas, do a quick research of who are your competitors, and see what programs are out there to give you free funding, free education, and free mentorship. And do a quick personal assessment of yourself. What are your why are you even going into this? Are you trying to start a business just because it looks like, oh my gosh, everybody's doing a business and I got to get into it? Or you really believe in what you're trying to do. And it would take time for you to be able to believe in what you're trying to do. But once you have the idea, don't sit on it. Don't hold on to it. Flesh it out. Do some research. Get online. Start asking questions and start researching. That's what I would honestly say to that woman.
And for women trying to get into the tech
you
space.
can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. We women are very resilient. We got grit. There's some of us who, want to live that laissez-faire lifestyle and everything. I'll give my sister as an example, but very interestingly enough, she's also an entrepreneur. But she started as a makeup artist, and she started going into influencing. And recently, she just decided, hey, I am a beauty influencer, but I can actually go into product development. And she just recently got her certification in product management because, she's a makeup artist. She provides guidance to companies about their new products before they launch. She does all the education. She tests the foundation, things like that. And I was like, girl, you can be a product manager, So she took that up and really dove into it. So no matter what it is that you're doing, technology is already here to stay. It's not just a field anymore. It's part of your day-to-day life. So whether you're a fashionista, you're a fashion stylist, you're a hairdresser, you're a beauty spa owner. Look, my other sister is also, she owns a restaurant kitchen, but we digitized that whole process for her. If you want to get into tech, you can do it. There are a lot of opportunities in the technology space. I highly encourage you to check out this website called 16personalities.com. Use it to answer some quick questions. It actually lets you know about your personality and some possible career prospects that you can dive into. And you can see that there's no role that you can get into that's not transferable with any of the skills that you develop, whether you're good with administration, project management, analyzing information. We're all good at analyzing. They say that we women are good at analyzing. So you can do it. just when you feel and see that you have a knack for it. So if you're already in administration, try to see if you can get it into business analysis or project management. If you like organizing stuff, getting things together, you can get into change management, project management. And if you have a knack for just thoroughly testing or thoroughly auditing things, you can get into quality assurance or user acceptance testing or UI UX design. I've also seen a lot of people who have a knack for decorating, getting into interior design and doing animation and things of that nature. So if you want to get into tech, don't be scared. Just wipe that fear away and just go for the gusto. The sky is the limit. There are a lot of resources out there for you. I highly encourage you to just find another woman who's already doing what you want to do. Reach out to them. Don't be afraid. The worst, again, that can happen is no, right? So you can't knock it until you try it. So don't be scared. Don't be scared. You got it. You can do it. That's all I have to say if you are aspiring to be in a technology space. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I mean, that was an amazing session.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much for coming here. And thank you for
Yes.
all of the advices. Please do a lot of research. You know, there's always someone out there that has done what you've done. Nothing is new. Do a lot of research. Use your Google tools. Use your YouTube tools. And then, you know, you'll be able to, expand your knowledge in every area.
Exactly.
And then also learn to connect.
Yes.
Connect with people. You know,
Connect. This is
attend
the era
events,
to
attend
connect.
online events. You know,
Right.
try to, you know, bring it all out. Yes, and thank you so much. With that, we've come to the end of today's show. And I want to thank my guests for making it to the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, and then thank you so much for staying till the end of the show. And we look forward to seeing you next time.